La cravatta non è stabile.
Hello everybody and thank you for joining us today. My name is Pilvi Torsti, I'm the director of ETF European Training Foundation in Turin, and as my guest today I have a prestigious commissioner, Nicolas Schmit from the European Commission. So welcome very much, Nicolas.
Thank you. Great pleasure to be here.
When one goes to your CV, so you will find born in Luxembourg, studied in France, several very prestigious positions, being a Minister of Labour, Social Affairs, Employment, serving the European Parliament, serving also the Foreign Service of Luxembourg for several years already, just before the Cold War ended. So incredible experience, both I think in thematic terms and in historical terms. And now finally last 4 years as a commissioner. So if I would just ask, how have you seen your key priorities now as a commissioner for jobs and social rights, and how you would look, perhaps reflect upon them a little bit now after these 4 years?
Well, when I started as a commissioner for jobs and social rights, which is also a new title, well, it was very clear that in my mission letter, because you get a mission letter from the president, it was said, well, you have to strengthen the social dimension of the European Union, with very precise missions then to implement during these 5 years. And this was something I was really longing for, because I had the privilege to be in Göteborg when we adopted the Pillar of Social Rights. So I became the commissioner to implement the Pillar of Social Rights. So this was a challenge, but it was also in some way a great honor. And it was something I really felt, because I think that Europe needs a strong social dimension. So that's what we started. And then a lot of things happened, a lot of crises. It was the COVID crisis first, then we had the recovery, but a recovery which did not last so long, with all the turmoil due to the war, with inflation, and so on. And on top of that, with a great ambition for Europe, being the transformation due to climate change. So climate policy, the Green Deal, but also how can we really put Europe stronger on its digital feet, I would say. So this was something which, and still is, what we are working on every day.
If then we look a little bit back, we actually have some shared past in terms of employment policies on youth guarantee. You were the very respected Minister for Employment of your native Luxembourg at the time when the youth guarantee was introduced in Finland, which is my native country, and then it became policies of European Union. And now we see it's being implemented in the Western Balkans, for instance. So how you would you reflect that these sort of policies that are first picked for the European Union and then also taken to other countries can really work to help with the skills agenda, with the agenda for the youth?
Well, you remember well the youth guarantee at European level was born due to the financial crisis and the economic crisis, when suddenly in many member states of the Union, youth unemployment just exploded. And we were looking what can be a solution. And we were inspired by an instrument which had been created in Finland, the Youth Guarantee. And if I draw some conclusion now and I look what has been achieved due to the Youth Guarantee, I must say a lot has been. It has helped a lot in many countries to bring young people back on the labor market, in jobs, but also in training, because this is another aspect. And what was successful in the Union should be also successful in other countries, and mainly in candidate countries. Because I remember when we discussed the Youth Guarantee, it was said this is really a structural reform, because to have an efficient Youth Guarantee, you have to have efficient services, efficient employment services, but also the right training or education providers which you need to help young people to get a good job.
If I may sort of echo a little bit, I think with Youth Guarantee, we've also seen this sort of delivering in partnerships very much. So that's something that inspired, I think, from the start, that it was a way to bring together also the education providers, sure, employment services, but also companies, enterprises, NGOs. So it's a very powerful tool also when we work in partner countries outside the European Union, to in some way also to enhance the sort of development of the civil society and the cooperation among the various stakeholders for the benefit, yeah, of the youth.
And the message was, well, we take care of our young. I remember when during this crisis, many young people on the streets all over Europe said, well, you take care of the banks, but you forget the youth. And I think that was the message we gave to the young people. Now we want to find good solutions for you.
No, I think it tells a lot that it's picked by the countries, for instance, in the Western Balkans as a tool, that it's a kind of tool that has also worked, and that I think we can all be both proud of, but also sort of emphasize the importance of finding such tools in the times of crisis. If we then move to our important moving topic as well, which is Ukraine and experiences of the last year, almost year and a half. You, of course, have worked very closely as a commissioner on the policies that the European Union has developed as a response to the crisis. So how do you look at the policies currently on skills, employment, displaced Ukrainians in Europe?
Well, first, I think Europe took the right decision from the beginning. We finally, for the first time, implemented this temporary protection directive. And this helped a lot because this allowed the Ukrainian displaced people first to get a job, second to have social protection, social services, schools for the children, because the majority are women, the majority are mothers, accompanied by their children. So I think this was something, or has been and still is, something very valuable. And it is amazing how fast and how many people, how many mothers have found a job, how many women have found a job, and how well also in normal cases kids have been integrated in the different national school systems, with the help sometimes of e-learning in Ukrainian, which is also important.
When we look ahead, we of course will also have a tremendous responsibility as European Union, as Europeans towards Ukraine. What's sort of your message perhaps at the moment, where you think the Europeans really should remain very strong?
Well, first, I think we have shown that we kept the solidarity at all levels in all fields with Ukraine. And this has to continue up to the end, and then after. After is to rebuild Ukraine, to make Ukraine a thriving member state of the Union. This is what the perspective is. Will not be tomorrow, but it will take some time. But the perspective has to be very strong and clear. That's what also our Ukrainian friends expect. And I think that we have a lot to gain from this country. There are a lot of very well trained, very well educated, very motivated people. And I think we can build a very strong partnership further with Ukraine.
Yeah, I cannot but say that with the work of European Training Foundation, ETF, we really have witnessed that, all the strengths you mentioned. And I think the capacity that the national stakeholders have and the strength that can only be admired, at the same time to have the immediate sort of relief work in place in the middle of the war, but really perspective for the future in terms of also education and skills very strongly. Well, we also have a year of skills at the moment in Europe. How do you see that value, perhaps, of the year of skills, in particular if you look at the perspective of outside the Union country in our neighborhood countries?
Well, first, I think this is the recognition that it is all about skills. When we are talking about technology, we have also at the same time talk about skills. When we are talking about greening our economy, we are talking about green skills. So skills is everywhere now. And sometimes Europe is running out of skilled people. That's clear. So there is obviously a very strong also international dimension in that. We cannot just say Europe is taking care of its skills, but we are not interested in what happens around. No, I think we have strong partnerships with European countries. We have mentioned Ukraine, but also the Western Balkans. We have strong partnerships with Northern Africa and Africa. And there is a thriving youth there with a lot of potential. And I think we are an aging continent and we need skilled people. So I think we have to extend this mindset for skills, this culture for skills, this strong skills policies to our neighbors and work with them on how we also can better skill their population.
I would then move perhaps almost to a little bit personal question, if you like, concerning the past years. When you started as a commissioner, we thought world would perhaps look a bit different between 2019 and 23, that what it has turned to be. At the same time, you've been there where collective decisions have been taken both around the COVID crisis and then with the Russian aggression to Ukraine. And we've really witnessed perhaps almost a new spirit, if you like, in Europe. You as someone with a very strong history for European values, solidarity issues, social issues. So how would you reflect even some of the situations where you perhaps have been sitting with your colleagues in the previous years, taking decisions you perhaps never imagined to be taken? What will you take with you from these years?
Well, first, we have been sitting regularly and I would say very often in a crisis modus. It was with COVID, a real serious crisis, first a health crisis, and I think Europe found the right solutions very strongly and very fast about vaccines, for instance. It was not easy to keep borders open. That was a challenge. And then it was clear also that this pandemic had hit countries in a different way. So there was this division or the risk of division inside Europe. We found a response. That was Next Generation EU. It was the RRF. And this went quite fast, which is also something sometimes people complain that Europe moves too slowly. Here, there was no alternative. We really had to act fast and boldly. This happened. So, and this went on with the war. And here also the response was clear. There was not about the energy situation, because there was the fear, well, we might run out of energy, gas or oil. Finally, we managed to find solutions and we got through the winter, last winter, and finally we found the replacement, because a lot has been done also on a solidarity approach.
We are in this first episode of Conversations with Pilvi Torsti. We are asking you to send a question forward to a person, even I don't know who it will be answering to. So that I would ask you to write to our little notebook, and I will not going to look at that, but if I may, to ask you. And while thinking about that, I would also ask you to, if there are some sort of closing thoughts you would like to share with our listeners, who are of course interested in the questions of Europe, skills, employment, education, future, I would say.
Well, for me, Europe is about values. It's about giving each person, each individual, the right opportunities. And when you have said that, this means obviously to give people the right education, to give people the right skills, to organize his or her life, or children the right opportunity. I'm very proud that I could also propose the child guarantee, because there's a youth guarantee. Finally, I introduced also a child guarantee. And I think that what we are doing in Europe, I think our values mean that we also have to work on the same basis with our neighbors or with our partners all over the world. That's what Europe can bring. And that's what the message of Europe, in a very, very clear and decisive way. This is our geopolitical message also. We stand for values, we stand for partnership, for peace. This is not so normal anymore, unfortunately. So I think this is what you are doing, finally. You know, there's this famous sentence in the Philadelphia Declaration of the ILO after the war. There is no lasting peace without social justice. And I think what you're doing is to bring some social justice all over the countries you're working with.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. So we've been discussing various issues. I think we can conclude by just repeating a few words: values, peace, concrete implementation of child guarantee or youth guarantee, fast and bold reaction of Europe in the past years, and finally also that skills is everything, also when we talk about actually peace and future. So this was the first episode of Conversations with Pilvi Torsti at EGF, and we had as our guest Nicolas Schmit, our commissioner at the European Union. Thank you very much for being with us today, and I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you, Pilvi.